listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy. This podcast is all about expanding the conversation around infidelity. I'm a relationship coach, and I specialize in helping people who are cheating on their partners make decisions that are truly right for them. On this show, we feature tools and guidance from my coaching practice and advice from other professionals whose work pertains to the sometimes complicated business of human romantic relationships. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Karilyn Ivers. Karilyn is a coach who works with partners of those who struggle with addiction. She teaches people how to create their own sense of emotional security so they can have peace and experience joy in the midst of their partner's addictions. She shows her clients how to let go of codependent tendencies and build true self-confidence that leads to lasting change in themselves and in their relationships. To learn more about Karilyn and her work, go to KarilynIvers.com. And of course, we'll have the spelling of that in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by me, Marie Murphy, PhD. I provide shame-free, blame-free, non-judgmental relationship coaching. You can talk to me about the things that seem too messy or weird or stigmatized to share with your best friend or your spouse or even your therapist, including but not limited to matters related to infidelity. To learn more about me and how we can work together, go to mariemurphyphd.com. Karilyn, it's great to have you here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about blame today. We're going to talk about ideas about right and wrong. And I just want to set the stage for this conversation by saying that there are definitely a lot of ideas out there in the fog of society, the cultural fog about what other people should do and shouldn't do.
Goodness.
Right? Some of these things are codified in law and affirmed by custom. But, as you and I both well know, regardless of what we or anyone else thinks other people should or shouldn't do, the reality is humans do all kinds of things.
Amen to that.
People do all kinds of stuff.
We just do. We do things. So the whole idea of right or wrong, at some point, it just doesn't even hold up anymore.
Right. Exactly. And, to that point, we may not like a lot of the things that other people do. And this, in a sense, I have a long list of things I don't like it when other people do. And we all have our things, but then we get into a relationship with someone that we love very much. And then it's what happens when they do things that we don't like? And, we
lose our stuff.
Right. We lose, you can say shit. We lose our shit. We totally lose our shit. And so I want to start off by talking a little bit about your work and the work that you do with people who are partnered with people who are dealing with addiction. And tell us what that's like. Tell us what you see your clients experiencing.
Well, they experience exactly what I did when I went through that relationship. And I think that's why they feel comfortable coming to me with this stuff, for the same reason they come to you with this is stuff people don't really talk about.
Right.
And because it's labeled as wrong.
Right.
And so there's a lot of shame and guilt for even being in a relationship with someone who who struggles with this. And, we have our own stuff too. So it's freeing. It's so freeing to be able to talk about it, first of all. But the things that my clients go through are a lot of confusion. It's just so much trust has been lost with themselves.
Hang on a second. Paint the picture for us. For those of us who maybe don't have a partner who struggles with addiction, give us a scenario for just a frame of reference.
Like a day in the life?
Sure. Or are we talking about addiction to substances? Are we talking about addiction to behaviors? Are we talking about addiction to anything and everything?
Most of my clients' partners struggle with either addiction to alcohol or drugs.
Okay.
Cocaine is a big one. My former partner struggled with heroin and meth. Mm-hmm. And with meth, a lot of the time comes sex addiction, like a lot of compulsive sexual behavior connected with meth. But there's also like pills. Adderall, for one, is a very insidious drug. And a lot of pills, opioid pills. Mostly that. I mean, there definitely are other behavioral addictions, but for the most part, it's drugs and alcohol.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So your clients come to you because what's going on their end of the experience?
They have lost all control of their life. Well, they never had control to begin with, but we don't know that. We like to think that we have the illusion of control over our lives. And then a relationship like this shows us how little control we actually have.
Right.
But they feel like they're just in a shitstorm of circumstances out of their control. And they have a lot of anger at their partner. Why are you doing this to me? Because their partner has a lot of compulsive behavior.
Right.
And this is, addiction. This is the nature of addiction. So they feel unloved, unseen, unheard, disrespected, anxious all the time. A lot of anxiety because we're always worried. What is our partner doing?
Right.
If they're in recovery, are they going to relapse today? If they're in active addiction, are they going to overdose today? It's just like death is always around the corner. Catastrophe could happen at any moment. It's just high anxiety all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I see this too with folks who have been cheated on. It's like this constant state of worry. Like, is it going to happen again?
Yep.
All the time. It's like, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to think about whether or not my partner is going to cheat on me again. Yeah.
Yes. I can relate to that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we work with this? I mean, it's so interesting because like we ultimately always have the choice. Like, do I want to stay in a relationship with this person or not? And
when they come to me, it does not feel like a choice for them.
Right.
They are deeply in love with this person.
Right.
And I felt the exact same way. When I reached out for help from a life coach, the one thing I knew I didn't want was for them to tell me to leave.
Right.
I will not hire anyone who I think might tell me that I should leave this relationship.
Right.
Because I'm just not ready. I'm not there. No way I could do it because I am so deeply in love with this person. The connection feels so strong. And this goes into a lot of other things like masculine, feminine polarity, why it is so, those relationships are so polarized and feel so passionate at times. Which is a whole other,
that's a whole other kettle of fish. But
the connection is so strong. So they come to me feeling like there's no way I could choose to leave this person.
Right.
And so of course that's never anything I even recommend, especially in the beginning. I mean, if we've been working together for a year and there's abuse happening or threats of violence and stuff, then I'm going to give you my actual opinion. Be like, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's no judgment about that because there comes back to right and wrong. This is an experience that you're having in your life.
Yeah.
What can we learn from this experience about you? Like, that's why we're here.
Right.
You may think you're coming to me to fix your partner.
Right. Right.
But really, we're on a journey to discover who you are.
Right. Totally. And where I was going with the whole like choice piece was like exactly what you said, like it's funny because in relationships, like we sometimes don't really think that ending the relationship is a choice that we have. Right. Yeah. But from there, what we get to is like, well, there are things wrong in this relationship and it's the other person's fault and they need to fix those things so that I can be okay, so that I can have the experience of the relationship that I want to have.
Which would be great if that's how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this happens in all kinds of relationships, whether or not there's addiction involved, whether or not there's cheating or infidelity. Like this is just like kind of like the nature of how most of us orient ourselves to our relationships, right? Like you need to do these things and don't do these things. And then everything will be good.
Yes.
Right.
Now, what you don't realize is it's good for you to have standards of how you're treated.
Yeah.
But the way you go about upholding those standards is completely backwards most of the time. We think it's the other person's responsibility to change, to do that, when really it's our responsibility to uphold those standards. In a loving and respectful way.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's where the whole like, ultimately, if someone just doesn't, meet the standards that you've set for yourself over and over again, no matter how much you don't want to, it may be that like the choice to leave is the best choice on the table. But in the absence of that, the interesting part, I think, is how do we orient ourselves to the things that other people do that we don't really like or that we would prefer them not to do? And so often, I mean, I'm sure you see this too, but the way I see this is like, so-and-so shouldn't have done what they did. What so-and-so did is bad. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing or what they have done. This shouldn't be happening to me. They shouldn't be doing this to me. I shouldn't have to put up with this. I don't deserve this. They're making me feel terrible. So what does that look like in your clientele?
Yeah. For the first thing is like, okay, you're right. And if that's all we got, then you're screwed because they are doing those things.
Right.
So even if you're right that they shouldn't be doing those things, even if you are valid in you don't deserve this, like, okay, yeah. So they're not changing. So now what are we going to do?
Right.
And well, it's that. And the next step is learning how to process all of the emotions that we have, because that's really the thing we're trying to get rid of is the negative emotion we feel around everything they're doing.
Yeah, totally. Most of us are, we want to feel good in our relationships. There's a certain way we want to feel. And we think our partners are supposed to make us feel that way through doing the things that we think they should do and through not doing the things that we think they shouldn't do.
Right.
So what does one do when they're in a relationship with someone who's, engaging in compulsive behaviors that have some pretty maybe significant effects on their lives?
Oh, yeah.
What do we do?
It's legitimately traumatizing. So, you first have to take care of your own emotions. Like if that's the only skill you learn, you're winning. Because the thing that my clients come to me not knowing how to do is how to sit with their anxiety.
Sure.
How to process their disappointment.
Yeah.
And trauma.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And ignore it and fix it. But this is human experience, is having emotions, all of them. And so this is like the meta skill that they learn that they can apply to this, but it also applies to every other area of their life. You've got to learn how to process your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is what we're doing as humans. We feel a lot of things.
Right.
And it doesn't even mean we have to take any action. Like just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean you have to make a certain decision, doesn't mean the relationship is doomed or that it's going to continue. Like the most important thing is just learning that they come and they go and that's okay.
Right.
The emotions. People
so too. Say that again. Say the last part again.
Emotions come and go.
They come and they go. Yeah. So I suspect we probably define emotions very similarly. Talk about emotion as energy in motion, as sensation in the body to which we can assign a one-word name. And I talk about it as being kind of like the weather, like weather just comes and goes. And sometimes it's sunny outside and sometimes it's cloudy outside. And sometimes it's a tornado and sometimes it's a hurricane. And even if it's uncomfortable to be in a snowstorm, it doesn't mean a snowstorm is bad. It's just a natural force that's blowing through town.
And even if you did want to label it bad, it's snowing.
Exactly.
There's nothing we can do to make it stop snowing. All we can do is surrender to it.
Yeah.
Accept it.
Yeah. And turn up the heat in the house.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Like
cuddle up in front of the fire.
Exactly.
Make some hot chocolate.
Exactly.
Go sledding.
Right. Totally. And so, I talk about this on the podcast and I talk about this with clients, but the thing that I notice with my clients and with myself is that even when we're cognitively aware of the fact that like emotions happen, their bodily experiences, some of them feel better than others, but even the ones that don't feel good or aren't bad, it's still a practice of just hanging in there with the experience and being willing to be uncomfortable.
And at first it feels huge and awful and just the worst thing ever. The more you practice this, the quicker the whole process happens.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that when I started this work, it would take me like a whole day to process an emotion.
Yeah.
Now something happens and my first thought, because I have a human brain, is I don't want to feel this. My second thought is, okay, since I don't want to feel this, that means I definitely should feel this.
Yeah.
So I check in with my body and I say, okay, what's actually happening? And then 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh, it's gone. Oh, okay. That actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But, that's practice of doing that.
Yep.
I just was coaching a client yesterday who's going to an event with her partner who is currently sober, but has struggled with addiction to alcohol and cocaine. And she's like, I know I'm going to go in there like expecting to be triggered. And I just want to be calm. I just want to be confident about it. She's like, so what do I do? It's like, okay, it might not be calm. Are you willing to go into this knowing that you might feel really triggered? She talked about this being like, a test for her of all the things that she's learned. And even still, she was going into it thinking that she should be able to keep calm during the whole thing.
Right.
My point was, that's not the point of this.
Yeah.
It's not the point to never feel things again, never feel negative emotions again. The point is to feel them on purpose, let them come and let them go.
Yeah.
And then the practice of that creates confidence. So you don't have to go in confident.
Right.
Go in willing to feel whatever you feel, and then you do. And then you feel like, oh, I can handle anything.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Totally. Yeah. And without creating a whole meta layer of meanings about what the feelings mean.
Yes.
This is what I see a lot of. I don't know if you do too, but we feel things and we're like, oh my God, well, since I feel this, it means that. And, I think this is connected to that time in my childhood. And it means that this is going to happen in the future. And it's just this whole like story about the emotional experience that doesn't help us get any clearer or freer.
Right. Because by trying to analyze it, what we really want, the deeper desire under there, is to get rid of the emotion. It's still to get rid of the emotion when you're analyzing it.
Right. It's a way to like,
that's never going to happen. Like you can let it come and go, but you're never going to permanently keep yourself from feeling negative emotion ever again.
Right. For sure. So good. So let's talk about where blaming other people comes into not wanting to feel our negative emotions.
Yeah. In which context of people who are cheating, have been cheated on?
No, let's talk about your context. Let's talk about people whose partners are struggling with addiction. And
well, that's very easy to blame our partners because they're the one they're the one using drugs and over drinking. So it's very easy to blame them for all the things that are going wrong in our life. But what we forget is we attracted this person into our life. They are the reciprocal of the current energy that we hold, which is not a good or a bad thing. There's no judgment about that. That's not saying like, oh, you're not enlightened because you attracted a partner who struggles with addiction. That's bullshit. It's enlightening just to see where you're at right now. Because if you have this person in your life, they're actually there to show you a beautiful thing about yourself. And that might be different for everybody.
Right.
So it's super easy to blame them, but it serves no purpose for us.
Yeah. I think that's really important to point out because with addiction and with cheating, like these are things that like, our societal attitudes towards them aren't real positive. Sometimes they're not even neutral or particularly compassionate. And so it's so easy to blame people when they're addicted or they relapse or, or whatever, or they're cheating. It's like this convenient scapegoat that we feel really justified in using as the foil for our emotional experiences.
And to that, I just ask them, how's that working for you?
Right. Exactly.
is it helping you feel better?
Right.
Is it, maybe in the short term it does because you're not looking at yourself.
Right. Right. It can
But
be
Is
so
it
much.
solving the problem you want to solve?
Right. Totally. Totally. Sometimes I think people really want to stay in anger and in feeling justified and
Mhm.
feeling victimized and things like that because it's maybe it's familiar, maybe it's easier than looking inward, and also it's just more intelligible than not thinking that something's bad. Letting go of ideas of what's right and wrong can be very like strange for some of us. It's like stepping off of terra firma and into some unknown conceptual universe where like there's no like signpost for anything and no frame of reference anymore. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that untethered.
People think that if I don't judge it as right or wrong, then that gives everyone permission to take advantage of me all the time.
Right.
Which is not true at all.
Right. Say more about that. That's really good.
Yeah. So one of my clients in general, one of their biggest fears or their biggest resistance is consciously, whether on accident or not, like consciously condoning their partner's behavior by not judging it, by making it more neutral.
Right.
But what they don't realize is that the whole time that they've been accepting this behavior by remaining in the relationship, they have unconsciously been condoning it.
Yeah.
The whole time you haven't had boundaries around this, you've been telling your partner that it's okay to treat you like this.
Yeah.
So it's completely backwards. We don't want to condone it, but we've been condoning it the whole time. But saying that we haven't. But actions and words are two different things.
Right.
So the point is, it doesn't matter if you let go of the judgment because that hasn't been serving you at all up to this point. It's just been creating tension and suffering for you. That is all it's been doing. And it's making your relationship more contentious as well.
Yeah.
Things can be more peaceful than that.
Yeah.
You can lovingly and peacefully show someone firmly what's okay and what's not okay in your relationship. But we don't do that because we're scared, because really we don't want to reject them and we don't want to be rejected.
Yeah.
So the underlying thing here is not feeling valuable or safe on their own.
Right. Right.
That's like the underlying thing in all of this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So often it's true. It's like, we get enmeshed in these relationship dynamics that we don't really feel good about. And we know that some of our like truest, deepest ideals are being compromised by staying in the relationship, but we're scared to leave.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because this relationship is here to teach you how to progress through that from feeling like you can't say no to another human to feeling like you can actually be more connected in a relationship when you say no and have boundaries and are willing to risk the relationship.
Say that one more time. That was good. Yeah.
The most powerful thing that you can do is be willing to risk the relationship by upholding your standards.
Yeah.
And that creates more connection.
Yeah. And I would say that is in part because doing that requires a certain quality of relationship with ourselves and a certain amount of love and connection to ourselves. And when we have that kind of connection to ourselves, connections with other people become so much richer and so much better and so much less predicated upon like meeting each other's like most like unexamined needs.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And that's really hard for people to believe that that's possible.
Yeah.
But when my clients actually start setting boundaries, they come back and they're like, oh my gosh,
it works.
Karilyn, it works. I want to set boundaries with everybody now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by saying it works, it doesn't mean that your partner changed to do what you want or be who you want them to be. It works, meaning I set a boundary and I stopped letting myself be taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether they threw a fit about it or not, the partner.
Right. Right. And we can decide on purpose, like, this is where I'm going to go and this is where I'm going to stop. And no matter how anybody else reacts, I'm really sure that this is right for me.
And that takes practice.
Yes.
You're not just going to one day wake up and believe that unless you've been practicing it.
Agree. Totally agree. And I think this bears repeating like millions of times, like people kind of like have this idea that like you hear an idea once and it's like profound and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then it's going to happen in your life. And that's not how it works at all.
The best example I have for that is when I was with my partner who struggled with, he was using meth at the time. I had heard this concept. I don't remember where I heard it, but they said, you don't have to trust your partner if you trust yourself.
Right.
And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, cool. But how?
Right.
And I was like, I want to believe that so bad, but I just did not understand it on a soul level.
Right.
And it took years for me to really understand that by practicing listening to my intuition, speaking on my intuition, making decisions based on that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was honestly the tale of the person who's terrified of being cheated on again. I kept attracting situations with untrustworthy people. And I would have the intuition. I would see all the red flags at the beginning, but I would question myself. I'd be like, is this a trauma response of mine or is this really happening?
Right. Right.
And so it took me going through that multiple times and getting my intuition validated after the fact when I found out that I thought was happening was actually happening.
Right.
Even though they were gaslighting me the whole time about it for months.
Yeah. Yep.
It took like multiple relationships, multiple different ways of that happening before it really clicked like, oh shit, my intuition is right every time.
And I haven't listened to it. And that's okay.
Yes.
But
And
now I'm going to start listening to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it takes practice.
Yeah.
Of course, you're not going to be able to just magically know when you haven't been listening to it for decades or when you've been trained out of listening to it for decades, which is a huge thing if you've been raised in any religion, really.
Yeah.
Don't trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, trust something outside of you.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that fucked me up for a long time.
We recently had a podcast episode with about sexuality and religion and shame and just undoing the patterned religious messages about your body being dirty and pleasure being bad and if you have sex you have to go tell your bishop about it or whatever all that good stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure did a number on me, but it is really empowering to go through that and be able to train yourself back into listening to it.
Right.
Even though it sucked.
Right.
And just like so much fear all the time. But I got coached on that because I was cheated on in that relationship with the person who struggled with addiction. And then the one right after that. And I kept saying to my coach, how do I make sure this never happens again? Like I have to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah.
And they were like, what if you didn't have to?
Right.
I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that. But the point being was you don't have to keep it from happening again because there's no possible way you could.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
cannot, even if you're in the most loving, loyal relationship, some shit could happen. And it won't be your fault for like missing a sign or not listening to your intuition. Like sometimes this stuff just happens. What you need to trust is in your ability to feel the feelings that you feel when that happens. Yeah. And move forward knowing that you will be okay.
Right. Yeah. So good. So good. And I mean, it's so true. It's like, yeah, sometimes we have like patterns of getting involved with people that do things we know we don't really want to be involved with. Yeah. And there's a very interesting lesson to be learned there. But sometimes even when we like haven't missed any warning signs, like stuff happens in life, stuff happens in relationships, and you can't like control, like you can't prevent things from happening at times.
Yeah. And even if it's like a little thing that your overreactive brain is just like, oh my gosh, that's a lie.
Yep.
That's cheating.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, that can really set you up. I don't think this whole patterns of behavior thing is a bad thing. When I had back-to-back relationships where someone cheated on me, lied to me, the next one, so the person with addiction, that was cheating and lying, a lot of it. Second one, but it was a lot more out there, and it would be like he would tell me about it immediately afterwards. But it was just part of the addiction, so it just kept happening.
Yeah.
So the next one was a lot of pathological lying and cheating, but never admitted to it ever. And like was really trying to convince me that it wasn't happening. And so when I did have the absolute evidence, it was just like, oh, so disappointing.
Yeah.
So disappointing. That was my biggest thing. The next relationship after that, he wasn't honest with himself. So there was no way for him to be honest with me.
Right.
It's so fascinating to watch the evolution of this thing in my life. Like really overt, really covert, and then so unknown. It was unknown to him how his feelings were. It was like a thing where he just was not over his ex and they had kids together, and is a whole thing. And I had that feeling that something was off the whole time, but he didn't even recognize that he actually wasn't over her until after. I was like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Something's off. I just know it's just not working. Yeah. And then, a couple weeks later, he called me and he's like, you know what? I just wanted to tell you, your intuition was right.
Yeah.
I wasn't over her.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was like angry at first, like but
yeah.
But, sometimes we can't expect people to be honest with us about stuff they're not honest with themselves about.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the converse of that is we can't try to be honest with other people if we can't be honest with ourselves first.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that story of yours is so great because the thing is we can't force people to be someplace that they aren't.
Right.
You can't make someone be honest with themselves. They're either going to do that or not, but you can't make them get there on their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just kind of
frustrating part a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same client who was talking about wanting to be calm, she had recently been stepping further back and further back out of trying to control his drinking. And she had been practicing that for a long time. And then one night he came home drunk after a long time of not drinking. And she was completely not freaking out about it, not trying to control him. And the next day he totally, for the first time, admitted that he really was struggling with it and wanted to change that. And she's like, why did it take just a few months of me not trying to make him get there?
Yeah.
For him to finally get there. She's like, I mean, I'm glad that you're doing this, but you're now doing it when I don't care as much that he was doing it.
Yeah.
It's amazing when we stop trying to control things, we allow people to get to their own conclusions.
Right.
A lot faster.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I always talk about trust versus control. It's we think that if we try to control everything, that that's how we're going to get what we want.
Yeah.
But it rarely works that way. And it feels so much better to step back and allow and trust.
And you don't have to trust them.
Yeah.
Because it's likely they're actually not trustworthy. You can right? No, you're right. They're not.
Yeah.
To trust is in the flow of life,
right?
Universe, and yourself, that it will be okay no matter what.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And that what makes it okay is us and how we conceptualize a situation. And the story we create about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And to that point, let's talk about our power to choose what we make our experiences mean. How have you worked with that in your own life? How do you work with that with your clients?
Well, the default meaning of most of this stuff for most my clients and me was, there's something wrong with me that I keep letting this bad stuff happen to me.
Yeah.
And I must be inherently broken because I'm in this pattern that keeps repeating.
Yeah.
And the biggest shift for me was none of this was a punishment to me. None of this was even, I know it sounds weird to say, but none of this was actually even bad happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone through my fair share of shit, and I can actually look back and I'm glad it all happened that way. You're not going to feel like that in the moment, probably like in the moment you're being cheated on, but because I can see the whole story, like big picture of all the little things I learned along the way about myself, about life, what is life, about relationships, about expectations of myself and other people. And if I hadn't been in a relationship with someone who struggled with addiction, I would have never become a life coach. And I would never have felt this deep sense of purpose in this way.
Yeah.
Like, I literally found myself from being broken open by heartbreak.
Beautiful.
Multiple times.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you said something in there that I think is really important. Like at the time when you're going through an experience that you're not thrilled about, like the point isn't that you need to find the like easy button or the happy button and just be like, everything's fine. Like that is not the point.
Agreed.
The point is that, with time, like there's the opportunity to step back in and relate to the experience in potentially a very different way. And it can be so freeing to let go of the idea that like something happened that was wrong. Like somebody did something to me that they shouldn't have. Like the person who wins and that is us. It's not that we're like excusing someone else or letting someone else off the hook or what have you.
Yeah. And that whole storyline of being the victim of something is just so oppressive to ourselves to tell ourselves that story over and over again.
Yep.
There's a time and a place for that. Like, this is unacceptable behavior. I don't want this in my life anymore. Consequences.
Yeah.
If they did commit some sort of, wrong or crime against you, absolutely they should get the consequences according to that action. And we can be empowered in that without feeling powerless, angry, vindictive,
victimized.
Martyred.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it kind of like gets back to where we started. Nice, like full circle. Like humans do all kinds of things.
Yes.
And like, I love the phrase, like people are assholes because they suffer. Like, and I like it, but I also think it's a little too extreme. Like we do stuff when we're confused that we might not do if we weren't confused.
And there's no way to be anything other than what you are in that moment.
Exactly. And that plays out in ways like, like we behave in ways that other people don't love sometimes. Other people behave in ways that we don't love sometimes. And it doesn't have to be all like, like good and evil. Like, you're bad. Like it just doesn't have to be like that. It can just be a little less intense, a little more like neutral. Like, we can make choices within that.
I'm just so bored of the whole good, bad, right, wrong, evil thing. It's like, that just takes out all of the internal challenge for us when we can just like write it off as this thing. Okay, what if it's not as bad as you would like to think it is? What if it's actually the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to you in your life?
What can I be as a result of encountering this experience?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be in my future? How can I use this experience as, a stepping stone to get there? Yeah.
And the thing, you can still decide if it's acceptable or unacceptable to you.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm not still with the person who struggled with addiction, or I'm not still with the person who cheated and lied.
Yeah.
Or I'm not still with the person who wasn't over his ex. Like I decided that was unacceptable to me.
Right.
And so I took that out of my life.
Right.
But I'm not sorry that it happened. I'm not sorry that I went through that experience.
Yeah.
Because I've been honing my intuition every step of the way. And that is really fun, actually.
Right. For sure. For sure. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like you're sitting around going like, those evil jerks, they did bad things to me. It doesn't sound like
now
that's
I'm
happening.
dating this amazing person who I'm just like, it's so easy and relaxed and happy, and it just feels amazing. And like, I am able to discern things about this relationship so early that I never would have, because I'm not attached to whether it works out or not. If I were, then I'd want to overlook all the things.
Right. Yeah. That's, oh God, this could be like a whole nother podcast episode. But when we're attached to an outcome, all kinds of stuff can happen.
Yeah.
But when we're both like, open to different outcomes and like, have our discretion finally honed or finally honed enough, then all sorts of interesting and wonderful things can occur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still a girl who loves to fantasize about my wedding 2 dates in. like, oh yeah, we could go have a farm and like we could, I'd love to be their parent. Like, I still do that. That's part of me. But I also am very good at boundaries now. So I'm not going to spend every day with them for 2 weeks. I'm not going to, have 5 nights over at their place. Like, I'm way better at boundaries now. And it's so much easier for me to say no if and when I need to.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love for it to work out, I'm okay if it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets a lot easier to let go of the things that don't serve you the more you practice saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I think that's also true the more we practice like blessing and releasing the past.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Well, on that note, it's been so nice talking with you, Karilyn.
You too. Obviously, could talk about this forever.
Oh my God. Yes. Literally.
We could have like 10 spin-off episodes of this one.
It could happen. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
But for now, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Karilyn Ivers. You can also find me on my website, KarilynIvers.com. And I have my own podcast called Your Partner's Addiction, and just finished up season 1. There's 50 episodes you can go listen to. And season 2's dropping July 19th, I think.
Oh, wow. That'll come quick.
I know. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Karilyn. And thanks to everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we hope you'll head on over to iTunes to rate and review the show. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.